everyone. I am Moria Bowman, a BEYA Stars and Stripes STEM Ambassador. Summer is almost over, and we are preparing to head back to school. Thank you for joining us today at the BEYA Stars and Stripes STEM Career Day, where we have an opportunity to learn about STEM professionals. We get more than just a look at their profession. We learn about what inspired them to pursue their careers, as well as what their day-to-day work includes. This is a real look. So when we consider their career as an option for ourselves, we have a better understanding of what is required to succeed in that career. We also get to see how they overcame challenges, like the ones we may face, but were able to dream big and succeed. I am joined by a group of student ambassadors. You may be wondering, what does it mean to be a BEYA Stars and Stripes STEM ambassador? We are students interested in STEM careers and have been given the opportunity to work directly with leaders to learn more about STEM careers. Leaders like Steve Poizner, the man who invented the GPS in cell phones, and General Charles Bolden, astronaut and former director of NASA. It has been life-changing to be exposed to these incredible change makers. It has also been an amazing opportunity to develop the skills necessary to interview, interact, and be featured on this Career Day production. Joy, please share information about you and introduce our Career Day founders.
Hi, I'm Joy. I'm a 12th grade student attending Susquehanna Township High School. I enjoy working with technology, and that is why I like being a BEYA Stars and Stripes student ambassador. BEYA Stars and Stripes Career Day is streamed on STEM City USA, which is a 2D metaverse. Get ready for the STEM City Hackathon, booting the feature today, talents coming soon. This is an opportunity for you to build your own metaverse, and the winning design will live in STEM City USA. The BEYA Stars and Stripes Career Day was started by 4 founders. Dr. Tyrone Taborn started BEYA while he was a teen just like us, over 40 years ago. He is writing a book called MetaQuake USA, soon to be released. Brigadier General Velma Von Richardson, she is a legend in the corporate IT world and one of the first 10 women generals in the Army. Lieutenant General Bruce Crawford, USA Army retired, and Vice Admiral Watt Davis, USA Navy retired, are our chairman and our chairman emeritus, and they serve as mentors to students and teens like us from all across the country. Over to you, Lieutenant Crawford.
Well, Joy, thanks so much, and appreciate the warm introduction. Appreciate everything that the ambassadors do for Stars and Stripes, especially as examples for those who are going to be coming behind you as the future professionals for the nation. So I wanted to start this morning with a brief quote, and this quote is by philosopher Will Craig. And what he said was, and I quote, "Purpose is the reason you're on this journey, but it's passion that is the torch that lights your way." So when you think about our purpose here today, our purpose this morning is really about exposing you to information that ignites a passion for a career in STEM. And so today we're going to be hearing from an accomplished computer scientist. But when you think about the broader purpose of today, it's really about an opportunity for you to really experience the art of the possible, hearing from ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things that literally change the world. And for those who are watching, aspiring scientists, technologists, and engineers, when you think about your opportunity to change the world, your question after today and after you hear from our speakers should be, why not me? So with that, again, I'd like to welcome everyone to what I know will be yet another inspiring session. So that said, over to you, Mimi.
Thank you, Lieutenant General Crawford. Hi, I'm Mimi, an 11th grade student at Riverside High School and a BEYA Stars and Stripes STEM ambassador. Today's guest career professional is Dr. Kyla McMullen. She's earned her bachelor degree of science in computer science from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and her master's and PhD degree in computer science and engineering from the University of Michigan. Dr. McMullen is the first and currently the only woman of color to earn a PhD in computer science and engineering from the University of Michigan. She is currently an assistant professor in the University of Florida, and Computer and Information Sciences and Engineering Department. Hope, can you tell us a few other interesting facts about Dr. McMullen?
Thank you, Mimi. Hi, I'm Hope Pagan, a 12th grade student at Susquehanna Township High School and a proud STEM ambassador. You are not seeing double. I am a twin sister of Joy Pagan. Dr. Kyla McMullen is amazing. Her research interests include the development of 3D technologies, which helps firefighters and people with visual impairments. She is also the author of Beautiful, Black, and Brainy, and Brilliant is the New Black, which showcase hundreds of exceptional young African Americans who excel in STEM fields and don't fit the typical scientist stereotype. This is going to be an exciting career day. Over to you, Dr. McMullen.
Thank you so much, Hope. It's so good to be here. You all did an amazing job. I'm Dr. Carla McMullen. As they said, I want to be in California. I'm at the University of Florida. I'm an associate professor, and my research is in virtual reality, augmented reality, and how we can have really good immersion using sound in these kinds of environments and just make really cool effects that people really like. So I have some slides here for you today, and we're just going to talk a bit about how I got where I am. And I'm also really looking forward to hearing any of the questions or comments that you all have, because even preparing for this talk, I really had to step back and think like, okay, when I was in high school, what would I have wanted to hear, or what would I have needed to hear? So, all right, let's get started. So I grew up in Washington, D.C., between D.C. and Prince George's County, Maryland. And this is my high school senior picture. I feel like I would put up my embarrassing picture just so we can all, have a level playing field here. Everybody was awkward a little bit in high school. This is before we had all the filters and everything. So I was in softball, I was in dance, I was in drama, I was learning American Sign Language at Gallaudet University. Like, I was doing all kinds of things. I had all of these interests that had nothing to do with STEM, but they were still things that helped to foster me as a student. And I wrote all of those there just so you all can know that just because you're pursuing a STEM career, that doesn't mean that you can't pursue other activities and things that don't seem to be related to STEM. You are a whole person. So make sure you're still doing those fun activities, and you don't have to only, pigeonhole yourself to STEM. My jobs, I was an arts and dance summer camp counselor one summer. I also worked at Six Flags. So this was me back in the day. And my favorite subject was none. I did not like school at all when I was in high school. To me, I thought that, high school was kind of a waste of time, which it wasn't. But in my opinion, I thought that, we could probably just do better and just get the book and read it ourselves and get some questions. I thought high school should have like a slightly different structure. But to me, I really just wanted to learn independently. So I think that's why research and why college was really, really good for me. So even being where I am today and all the accolades I have, I didn't like school. So that's sometimes a surprise to some people. And this is just a quick throwback for anybody who's on here who was a teenager or alive around the same time as me, where these were our toys. This is what we played with. The way that you all have like your phones and you're constantly on them. This was our Instagram and TikTok and all of this. So I'm curious if any of the students, any of the ambassadors that we have today for Stars and Stripes, if any of you can even name some of these toys. Probably Nintendo, because it's made a resurgence lately, but all of these were our digital toys when I was coming up and thinking about being in computing. These were actually a lot of the toys that introduced me to the field of computing and also made me want to be a computer scientist, because you could have, in my opinion, you could, press a button and then something would happen somewhere else. And I'm like, whoa, that sounds like magic. So I wanted to figure out, what is the magic? How do I make it? What is going on inside of that computer? So when I was in elementary school, we had the school went from elementary to kindergarten to 8th. So you went through with the same people. So when I got to the 8th grade, about 6th to 8th grade, that was when we actually got computers in the school. And that even made me intrigued even more. But you had to be a student who needed enrichment in order to use the computer. So for me, being a good student was a penalty because I didn't get to use the computer. So it was constantly this thing that I wanted to figure out. So once I got to high school, which is where a lot of you are now, I went to a science and technology high school, and this was what we were able to major in different sort of tracks. So I majored in the computing track. And we'll go to the next slide. I wanted to also show you this, a little bit of nostalgia for some folks and then confusion for others. This was how we exchanged text messages. This is how we chatted with people. On the left, we have Yahoo Chat, which was this random, just wild, wild west chat room where you could just, sign on and talk to anyone in the world. You have no idea who you're talking to, but this was the early days of messaging on the computer. So you can imagine tons of catfish. And then on the right, we have a picture of what early websites used to look like. We didn't have design principles. People made these awful looking, gaudy websites. Sometimes they would start with, with the music. They might start with, they would just be so intrusive and they looked terrible. They were absolutely terrible, and anyone could make one. There were free things like GeoCities and Angel Fire and a few other things that I'm probably forgetting. But this was what our internet looked like, or what the internet looked like when I was your age. And this, even just having this, made me want to continue and figure out how to make, just how to be in computing, how to do that. Even the internet itself, the fact that I could be in, my parents' basement and then talk to someone else. And we didn't have to just use Yahoo to chat. I know Mimi just asked. So this, we had cell phones, but like text messages were like, I think 10 cents a text. But if you wanted to use Instagram, almost there was no Instagram. You could just there was just a general room and they might have topics and you could just click the button and whoever is in that room is in that room and you're talking to them. It was the wild, wild west. But yeah, I just wanted to situate, the context of where I was and what computing was. The internet was really slow. We had dial-up, which was you could, call, you had to call on the landline. And then if somebody picked up the phone, they might interrupt it. And sometimes you had to have a second line to have the internet line versus the home phone line. When I was in, you all probably use these still, but the TI 80-something calculators. And I did not use my calculator for calculating. Well, I also used it to play Tetris and other things, but this was also one of the introductions to programming because I saw that you could actually program games, and you could tell the computer what picture to put where, what thing to do where. And I was bossy. I'm like, oh, great. I get to boss a computer around and tell it what to do. This sounds amazing. I already think that I know everything and I know how everything should be run. Programming is, right up my alley. So I want to get into some of my biggest challenges. So I'm thinking now about once I got to college and then once I got to graduate school, I have the meme up of Spider-Man pointing to himself, hey, no, it's you, no, it's you. And it's the same person. That's literally me. My biggest challenge oftentimes was myself. And self-limiting views is what I would call it. So we have this internal monologue that's constantly going on. We're always talking to ourselves inside of our heads. Now we can feed ourselves positive things and we can feed ourselves negative things, but whatever it is that you feed yourself, that's what's going to happen. That's how you see yourself. And that's what the outcome is going to be. So sometimes, I might look around a classroom, and for many of you going into STEM, you may get to class and you're the only person who's Black. You're the only person who looks like you. And then let's say you have a challenge in the class, and then your brain might start to tell you, oh, this is only challenging because I'm Black. You might start to have these sorts of doubts about yourself, and they're completely untrue, but you have to watch what it is that you tell yourself, what you think about yourself. You have to get out of your own way sometimes. Even comparison, that was the second biggest challenge that also had to do with myself. Let's say you have a classmate and they are just getting the information and getting everything so quickly, and you might need a little bit more time to figure things out. There is nothing wrong with taking more time to figure something out. Everyone had a point in time in which they did not know something. I remember being in graduate school after I finished college, and being in the classroom and the teacher's just talking about a minute, and then someone raises their hand and they answer the question. I didn't even know a question had been asked. Like everything was just flying. And I was like, what is happening here? But I didn't let that, get me down. I definitely, I took notes, and I had to literally, after class, I had a study group. You have to humble yourself. So that's another piece, being humble enough to ask for help when you need it. You can't do everything by yourself. So I had to humble myself to, work with other people so we could go through this fire hose of a class and look through our notes and figure out what actually happened. At the end of the day, we all got the exact same A as the person who, knew all the answers to all the questions, and they knew everything already. All of us got the exact same grade. So definitely get out of your own way. And there was actually a second lesson in that as well. Same group of people. We went to a seminar in class. And I think, I'm not sure if any of you have heard of the word imposter syndrome. I'm going to tell you what it is so that you don't fall victim to it. Imposter syndrome is when you are in a situation and you feel like you're only there because somebody messed up, like you haven't earned your spot there. It's this false belief that, oh, I'm only here because I'm a woman, or they picked the wrong name on the list, or because I'm Black, or, you just start to tell yourself all of these things. And I remember being in one of those seminars and they're explaining what imposter syndrome is. And I'm like, well, I'm actually an imposter. I don't belong here. And I'm thinking that to myself. And the person presenting told everyone, hey, they explained what it was and said, raise your hand if you're an imposter. And I looked around, and the people who I thought were so brilliant and knew all the answers to all the questions were raising their hands. I'm like, no, you're the smart one. I'm the imposter. And we're all going around looking at each other. And I'm like, okay, nobody knows what's going on here. Everyone feels like they don't belong. So there was a lot of relief in just knowing that it wasn't just me, and that, college is hard. Grad school is hard. So if you're able to overcome those challenges without being in your own way, you'll get by a lot faster. Oftentimes it's really easy, especially if you're an introvert, to sort of sink into yourself and sort of like just want to solve things by yourself and isolate yourself. Isolation is the worst thing that you can do. You always need community, and you always need people. And so this leads into my next slide, where my mentor, who helped me the most, like I had some challenges in graduate school, but this was my dissertation advisor, Dr. Gregory Wakefield, and he was the person who showed me what research is. We met about every other day the first month that I started working with him, and he really taught me what it was to be a researcher, how to do the job that I have today. He has recently retired, but he is such an amazing, amazing person. I've learned so much from him. It's made me a better advisor, because now I'm the person who's sitting on the left, and I have 5 PhD students who I help to get through their PhD program, and everything that I learned I got from him, and not just how to do research, but also how to think about life, how to think about work. He was someone who never let work overtake his personal life, which is really cool, because it's really tempting to, be a workaholic and never take a break. But he would say, hey, 5 o'clock, I am going over here. He's also a singer, so he would be in like various productions that the school would have. He had really good outside activities and maintained being a person, and was also regarded as one of the most brilliant people in our field. So in terms of his education and his own personal life, he's definitely a mentor that's helped me so much. So what does a day in my life look like? I hesitated with this slide because no day is the same. So being a researcher, or being someone who essentially works for yourself. Yes, I work for the University of Florida, but outside of going to class, to teach class, or going to meetings, there's nowhere that I'm supposed to be at any given time. So unlike maybe a traditional 9-to-5 job at an industry company, where you clock in, you sit at a desk, you go around to meetings, and you clock out, and everyone knows you're supposed to be in that spot or somewhere around that spot all day, I could be anywhere. But typically I wake up, go to the gym, feed my plants, eat my breakfast, and then do whatever needs to be done. So I like to prioritize my work day at the beginning of the week. So I just look at what needs to be done and assign time slots to it. So that's anything from meeting with students, meeting with any project groups. I'm a part of a few different research projects. So making sure that work is advancing, writing grants. As a professor, you can literally write papers to the National Science Foundation, to different government entities, and they give you money to do your research. So for the people who are really good at math, I wrote a 15-page proposal that was able to get me $1 million. And this $1 million, I wish it was in my pocket. It's not in my pocket. It goes to PhD students. But if you do the math, that is $66,000 and some change a page. So just think about the impact, the amount of money that you could have just being a professor. So these are things that we write grants so that we can get our research done, pay our PhD students, because by the way, a PhD is usually free. People don't tell you that. College is really expensive, but for people like you, ambassadors, you should not be paying to go to college. You should not be paying to get any sort of graduate degree. There's so much money out there, and you should be doing exactly what you're doing now, being proactive and seeking out resources like this. So anyway, writing grants, writing research papers, and then sometimes packing, because I could literally be in a whole different state on my laptop, at the beach doing my work. I can be completely anywhere else. And this was before the pandemic, when, everything was virtual. So there's a ton of flexibility in my work. All right, so skills. The skills that I have built over the years are programming skills. Since I'm a computer scientist, you've probably heard of programming languages like C, C++, Java, Python. People don't usually know MATLAB as much, but those are the skills that I've built over time. But when you get a degree in computer science, it's basically a license to be able to learn any language, because the structure is usually pretty similar in most languages, and you're just learning the commands to get done what you need to get done. Some of the other skills that I had to also learn are communication, and I have it bolded because oftentimes you forget that it's important to be able to express yourself. And if engineers have this stereotype sometimes of, hey, I just work on engineering, I don't need to talk, I don't need to write. But that couldn't be further from the truth, because if you're spending all of your time creating this really cool invention and you can't communicate how it actually works, or how it can help someone, what it does, then you've wasted all of your time. So I really, really want to encourage everyone to strengthen your communication skills, strengthen your writing skills, especially, in your English 101 classes, being very clear about what you're saying and making sure that your words have meaning. You don't use unnecessary words. And I could go do a whole talk on communication and being clear, but being able to communicate yourself clearly, especially about complex STEM topics and engineering, that will get you promoted way faster than being someone who's brilliant but can't tell anybody what they did. The next is leadership, which you all are doing now as ambassadors. Time management, because you're given, especially when you get to college, it's not like high school where you're in class all day. You might have one class at 9, another class at 12, another class at 3. What are you doing between those times? Some people may just go and take a break, might skateboard, but you want to make sure you're structuring that time so you're getting your work done and making sure you have time for the things that you want to do. So time management is very, very important to learn, and also having a growth mindset. And that means having a mindset where you are always open to not knowing and then learning. And I think we often think of college and learning as this static thing, like, oh, I learned everything that I need to know, I got my degree, this is where my learning stops. You have to be a lifelong learner, so that you can continue to grow, continue to know things, continue to contribute in society. And especially with engineering and computing and technology, things change overnight. They change every day. I would have never thought that I would do a talk in the metaverse. So things change so much. So you have to have a growth mindset. And one of the reasons I really like talking to high schoolers is because the jobs that you all are going to have when you get older, when you get my age, they don't exist right now. There's probably no title for it right now. So you have to constantly evolve and be able to be adaptable to change. So it's really exciting, and it's also very scary. But if you always have that growth mindset, you'll be able to roll with the punches there. All right. So my research in 2040, if I were to take a time machine and think about my research in virtual reality and augmented reality and what it would be doing in 2040, I think especially for the audio component that it would be embedded into lots of wearables, like ordinary wearables like sunglasses. Like you may have audio speakers embedded in your sunglasses, or you may have augmented reality really small into your sunglasses, and they may not be a huge, visual scene, but it might help you. Let's say if you're walking down the street and you're trying to find a restaurant, it may, be something very small like that. And I also think it's going to be customized for everyone, because right now we just have a general virtual reality. Like if you have the Oculus, or if you have the Gear, they just render the virtual reality to you based on some generic person. I think there's going to be some way to customize the virtual and augmented reality experience in the future. Okay, so now we can move to the questions and answers, because I'm really excited to answer your questions.
Thank you, Dr. McMullen, for sharing your amazing career with us today. I'm Savannah, and a 12th grade student from Sacramento Country Day High School. Thank you so much for inspiring us with your journey. I can't wait to read your books and learn more about what STEM professionals really look like. Now, we want to put you on the hot spot and ask you a few questions, so I hope you're ready. We're going to do a round robin with the questions, so Moria, if you would please start us off.
Hi. How long have you been at the University of Florida? And where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Ooh, that's a good one. I see myself, well, I'll start with University of Florida. I've been here, I want to say 8 years now. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, but about 8 years. And in 5 years, I don't know. I see myself hopefully on the way to becoming a full professor. So there's different levels, assistant, associate, and then full. So right now I'm at that middle level, which is associate. So hopefully on the way to full, hopefully still at Florida, or still at a very welcoming and productive environment. So yeah, I will continuing to do my research, maybe having some sort of administrative role where I can help to make policies and help to change things so that students can, don't have such a crazy experience in college, because I know it's really, really tough. And, I want to be able to help people to make change so that more people have college as an option.
I think that's very kind of you to make sure everyone gets that good college experience and inclusive college experience, because sometimes as a Black person you kind of do feel like an outsider if you're not attending like an HBCU. Like if you're attending a PWI, you can feel, I had people who literally have felt like an outcast, and just to have those more inclusive programs and like helping each other out, I feel like that would be wonderful.
Yep, you hit the nail on the head. Thank you.
What does a typical work day look like for you?
So usually a typical work day, if I'm at home and not at a conference, waking up, gym, maybe talking on Zoom to a student, maybe helping a student figure out a piece of code or a piece of their research, meetings with my with different project groups that I'm a part of. I also forgot to mention that I host a podcast called Modern Figures, and we have a guest every week, and we talk about Black women in computing and people who, got to really high places in technology. And we tell about their stories, how they got there, just so people can see that you can come from so many different walks of life and be really successful. So I may have a day where I need to record a session with someone for the podcast. So it definitely varies. No day is the same. So a typical day does not exist. I don't think I've ever had the same day twice.
It's so cool that your job is so flexible like that. Like the fact that you get to plan around everything and still have fun. Your podcast sounds really interesting. I'll have to listen to it. What would you say is your pros and cons about your job, and why?
That's really good. So you definitely named one of the pros already, which is the flexibility. And it's just, you have this huge chunk of time that you can do anything with. So that is the pro, but that's also the con, because if you're not good at time management, you can easily waste a lot of time. And then all of a sudden your deadlines come up and you're like, oh, I had any time to work on it. I didn't work on it at all. So, just being very structured and making sure that you're giving things enough time so that you can work on it. And it's a skill that you develop over time. Usually we're really bad at measuring how long we think it's going to take to do something. So making a realistic schedule is sometimes really hard for me, because I'm like, oh yeah, I can finish this in an hour. I can finish this in 2 hours, and I'm still working on it at the end of the day. So that, I would say, that's a two-sided coin for having lots of flexibility. I like to travel. It's brought me so many different places, because one part of the communication of your research is that you have to actually physically go to conferences and share your research with people who are doing things that are similar to you. And at the same time, you have to like travel. So I've been all over the place for free. I don't have to pay for it, because you have grants. And like I'm telling you, academia is the best, and people don't know it. So that's why I'm really happy that you all have this series, because you need to get exposed to careers and to know what's out there, because I didn't even know that this was an option when I think until I was in graduate school. That's when I found out that, well, there's a whole world out there and you can see it for free. I went to Hawaii for free as a grad student, and I was like, this is amazing. But yeah, those are, and then what else? A con. So I talked about the time aspect. Sometimes it's really hard to, so I have research that I have to do, I have to teach, and then there's service, which is doing things like this, for example, where I talk to students or I do things that help to make sure that there are more computer scientists. And sometimes the service part is really hard to say no to, and it's easy to do too much of it during the week. And the way that you're evaluated when it's time to get a promotion, it doesn't count service as much. So, but then that's where my heart is. Like, I really want to see more people who look like us, who are in computing. So like having that tug between, getting your work done versus doing the thing that you really, really want to do. Because as you mentioned in my bio, I'm still the first and only Black woman or woman of color, unrepresented woman, to get a PhD in computer science at University of Michigan. They still have not had anyone. This was 10 years ago. So this is, we're not talking about yesterday. So for me, it's a very, very personal journey. It's something that is dear to my heart. And it's really hard to kind of stop doing that when it's time to do my research.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That's impressive.
That is impressive.
I just want to ask a question, just because I was connecting with the part when you said time management. You have all this free time, but you have to learn about time management. As a student athlete, I do struggle sometimes with time management. I know some other high school students might struggle as well. Do you have any tips on how to manage your time well?
Oh, definitely. So I start off with my calendar. Like I do it virtually, but I used to do it on an Excel sheet. But you have your calendar and put in first all of the things you have to do. You have to eat. You have to go to school. Like the things that you have to do, and then all of the spaces where there aren't things. That's when you can start to throw in. Okay, this is where I do my math homework. This is where I do these other spaces, because you have to go to sleep. You have to do all these other things. When I was in sports, I needed a nap after I came home. So my nap was very instrumental. So it'd be, school all day, softball, nap, wake up, dinner, homework. And, that really helped, because it doesn't help you to make an unrealistic schedule where you're just like, for me, I can't work if I'm tired. Like my brain does not work. So for me, not feeling guilty about wanting to rest is really important about my schedule. But it's about learning about yourself and how you work best. And the way you work best may not look the same way somebody else works best. So for me, my energy goes like this throughout the day. So I try to get really important things done in the beginning, because I know that's when I can concentrate the most. And then if I'm just filling out forms or doing something that doesn't require my whole brain, then I'll leave those for the afternoon. So I would say my tips are, one, to map out all of your time with your have tos first, and then all the spaces where you don't have things. And don't forget to put in the stuff you like to do because you're not a robot. You don't want to just, all the stuff you have to do. You don't have a calendar full of all the things you have to do, and then homework, and then you haven't had a creative outlet, or you haven't had rest, or you haven't had anything that brings you joy. So making sure that you have that on there, and you might get to a point where you have way less time than you have more boxes and less time. So then you have to prioritize and say, what can I remove from my calendar? What's not necessary, so that I can, still get things done? Because once you see visually how much time you have, and then you're trying to fit more things into slots that don't exist, then you can start to prioritize. But you all are amazing. I wish I was at your stage of the game when I was, when I was young, because these are things I had to learn much, much later. So learning about yourself and how you learn best is so instrumental.
Thank you for that. I would definitely take that with me on my upcoming senior year. So I have a question for you. What led you to your current career/job?
That's a great question. One word: Juan Gilbert. My Juan Gilbert is my chair now, but I met him. He's basically the head of my department, and I met him when I was in college. And I was getting my PhD, and I wanted to go. And since I was from Washington D.C., I wanted to return home and work for NSA or FBI, or do something really cool with like computer crime or something like that. That is how I was. That was what I was thinking. And so once I finished, he sent me a message and said, "Hey," no, I ran into him at a conference. We were in, I think, Austin, Texas. So Austin's really cool too, by the way. But he said, "Hey, did you just finish?" And he said, "Hey, send me your resume." And I'm thinking that he's going to pass it along to people who he knows, because he's really well connected. I was thinking that he was going to pass it along to people who he knew in industry. He gave it to everyone in his department at Clemson, where he was at the time. And he said, "Oh, great, you can come for an interview. Everybody wants to interview you." I'm like, I didn't apply. Like, I didn't ask to do this. And so I didn't want to be a professor, because I remember my story. I hated school. Like, even in school, like, I would have a joke that I quit every week. I quit because, things would get hard, but I would tell myself in my head, okay, after this problem set, I'm quitting. And that was just my way of, getting through things. But I did not enjoy school, but I thought about it, and I thought, why can't I create the school that I want, or the class that I want, or the courses that I want? Like, I think that learning is so old. Like, the way that we learn is so old, and the way that the traditional school goes. So anyway, that wanting to change up how classes look, how courses look, and the way we think about learning. That was one reason I got into it. The second, I told him, "Hey, I don't want to have to write grants. That seems stressful, to have to, write these grants that people have to say yes or no to, and that determines if you can have money to do your job. That sounded stressful to me." And he was like, "Well, I have lots of millions of dollars in grant funding. I will show you how to write grants." I'm like, "Oh, I guess that makes sense." So, and then also the flexibility part. He was the person who really pulled that out to me and said, "Hey, you're a grad student. You've got to see the world, traveling, doing your research. Now you can be a professor, and this can be your life." And I was like, got a good point there. So, and the last point of it was, if I don't like it, I don't have to stay. I still have a PhD, I can go to industry. I can also, I can do other jobs. So he said, just, give it a try. And I have not looked back. That was 2000 and I think 13 when I started. So it's almost been 10 years of being an assistant/associate professor. So that's how I got there. Someone pulled me to the side and said, "Hey, do this. You'll like it."
That's really cool how, like, just through one person, you were able to, like, have all these other open doors. And it's like, oh, wow, this is maybe a great idea. Let's check that out. That's really cool. Just how it all bloomed and blossomed by one person. That was very helpful.
Yeah, one thing I do want to mention about him, if you look up Juan Gilbert, he's also a Black man, and there's about at any given time in the nation, there are about 200-ish Black computer science PhD students. He usually has 10% of them in his lab. at one university. So he makes a huge impact in that area. He's graduated probably the most Black PhDs in computer science of anyone out there. You know, he's really well known for not just Black people, but also women. So he's a huge advocate. So being connected to people who have access to resources, and then also people who are willing to give their resources to help you. So he's very much a person who, if he knows you need something, he will figure out how to get it for you. You know, he's very selfless, and having those kinds of qualities is just you can't imagine, like, you can't pay money for that. So, yeah.
That is so wonderful to hear that you like had like a mentor and stuff like that, and someone to just show you like the career field and introduce you to a whole new life and everything. That's just so incredible to me. I have a question for you now. What type of education/training, technical knowledge, or experience is necessary for this kind of work?
Okay, that's a lot of questions. So I would say the education and training, you definitely need to be a professor. You need a PhD in computer science, but you can still be a lecturer or teach with a master's. You have to know how to code, which is knowing a programming language. So those are sort of like the technical skills, but you also have to have leadership skills. As I mentioned, you have to be good at budgeting money, budgeting time, managing people. You know, I didn't think that, a researcher would need to know how to operate with different personality types, how to manage a group. And it's so funny. You think of teachers and, from your experience of teachers, they go to school for it, from the kindergarten to 12th grade level, they go to school for teaching. This is their major. This is what they want to do. You get to college, none of us majored in teaching. We majored in our actual sub-discipline. So you have to learn how to teach. And for some reason, college is the only place, being a university professor is the only job you can have where you don't need experience to do it. They just assume if you've gotten this far in school, you must be able to teach. And that's the farthest thing from the truth. So you definitely need to learn how to teach, how to lead. What else? How to communicate. Like, written communication is so important. So I mentioned those grants. You're able to write grants to get money for your research and for your lab because you can very succinctly and clearly articulate what you plan to do and all the steps for your plan. When you're writing papers, so you can go to conferences and share your work, you're articulating what you did in a very clear way. I don't think communication is stressed enough, especially growing up, but I can just tell you, and there's so many different ways where having really clear communication helps. It makes sure nothing is ambiguous, everything is on the table. But yes, and also in presentations, you can put up a PowerPoint presentation and sort of talk at it, but there are ways to structure even how you present information to people, because they're looking at something visually and you're talking at the same time, and there's an art to making sure that you're not overwhelming that person. So being an effective communicator is also a really good skill too.
Okay. Hello. What type of starting position and salary would someone entering this field be most likely to find?
Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good question. So starting off as an assistant professor, it's about 110,000, and that is Florida dollars. So you start off six figures. So and all of our salaries are public information. So if you are interested in being in, if you're interested in being a professor at a public university, you can look up the salary, because we're technically public employees, so you can look up our salaries. But yeah, it starts off at 110, and then you get, about a 3% raise every year or so, depending on how things are going.
That's really cool.
And then you move from assistant to associate, and you get like a 9% raise. And then if you move from associate to full, there's another raise. I don't know what that percent is yet, though.
I think that's really interesting. I didn't even know that's just how it went. That's really cool. I kind of have a long question for you, but how do you use math, reading, writing, business technology, science, and foreign languages in your daily work?
Ooh, that's really good. So let's start with math. You have to repeat them all so I can like go down the list. So
That's
math
fine.
is all the time. So programming is an applied form of math. Like when you're trying to solve a problem, when you're programming a solution, oftentimes it requires the use of math to solve a problem. Um, in computer science majors, you typically have to take up to calculus 3, but you don't need all of that for to actually program well, but you do need to have a strong math background. There's also classes that are about discrete math as well. So math is it's a pretty big part, especially because with me, with 3D audio, we do a lot of signal processing, and signal processing is a lot of linear algebra and a lot of transforming. So there's a good amount of math. Okay, so you said math. What was the next one?
Reading.
Reading, I'm reading all the time, reading research papers, reading grants, reading things to give feedback to others. That's another piece of it as well, because if you publish or if you get grants, they also expect you to be part of the evaluation team. So you can read other people's and help them decide. Yeah, I'm reading all the time. So I need to actually get back into reading for fun, because I read for work so much. I'm like, my eyes cannot move anymore when I get up. So, okay, so math, reading. What's the next?
Another one was writing.
Writing, I'm always writing. The slogan is publish or perish in academia. And it means you have to continually write about what you're doing and get it published to present at conferences, or perish. You're not going to die, but you won't be as effective as your job and people won't know what you work on. So writing all the time.
Okay. Another one was business.
Business is, people make the assistant professor or associate professor or any sort of professor, they liken it to having your own startup. And it's really, really similar, because once you join, you have a research lab. So you have all of this talent pool and you have some money, and you need to figure out how to turn the people and the money into a product or into, what your outcome is. So you have to think about just like optimizing and strategizing. And it's your own small business. Like it's definitely your own small business. I have a friend who has her own business, and it's so funny how we have the same issue sometimes, but she's talking about it from, she makes nano wafers, for ear implants, cochlear ear implants. And I'm talking about virtual reality, but, the same way that she runs her business, we try to learn from each other to fix things, but it is your own small business all the time.
The last one I have for you is foreign language skills.
Foreign language. I was thinking about that the other day, and like the way that you learn a coding language to me is very similar to how you learn another like foreign language, like you learn Spanish and things like that. Because, in English, we know what nouns and verbs and things are, we know all the pieces. And let's say if you learn another language, you just need to learn the new word for that in that language. And sometimes like you might put the adjective after the noun, because that's how that language goes. The same is for computing. Like anytime you learn a new programming language, it's not like you just forget how to code. You just need to learn what is the word to do this thing in this other language. It's not like learning how to code all over again. Like when you go from learning English to learning Spanish, you don't have to learn how to talk all over again. You just have to learn what is the analogous word. So it's very similar to learning a foreign language. And I was reading something a while back about how they want to start making programming count as a foreign language in school, so that you could get your foreign language requirement by learning how to code, because it is technically a language.
I have a question. So, do you have to depend on others in order to accomplish your job? Do you work in teams?
Yes, all the time. So no person is an island, and that is a theme throughout like everything. And so if there's one thing that you like come out of this with, besides communication skills, is that you need community, you need people, and it doesn't matter what you're doing. I would say even from taking classes, I would always have a study group of people where we're like, hey, this class is crazy, but we're going to study together. And if 4 of us listen to one person and one piece that I may not not have gotten, you may have understood it, and vice versa and everything. So all the way to now, where all of my projects go the best in groups, because everybody has a different set of skills. Everyone has a different set of expertise. Let's say there's one week where I can push the ball forward and then I need to roll to something else. My coworker can keep pushing the ball forward. So they say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with other people. And it's 100% true. Everyone just brings the entire group up. So learning how to be a good group mate is also a really good skill, because there are a lot of group projects, and I'm pretty sure you've had group projects in high school as well. And it always happens where, there's a couple people who are doing all the work and a few people are kind of just hanging back and not really doing anything. So having good group management skills, and being a really good either group leader or group member, understanding group dynamics so that you don't get to the end and you haven't done anything, that's really important. But I wouldn't be able to do what I do without a group. I have a research lab. They are the ones who I'm training to do the cool research I talked about. So they're the ones who are constantly, moving the ball, keeping things going forward as well.
That's great. Can I just say you have been killing this hot seat? I think our viewers are learning a lot from you, and so are we. I'm going to ask you one final question, and I'm very excited to learn about this question also. My question for you is, what advice would you give to your 16-year-old self?
Man, what would I give to my 16-year-old self? I'm really sitting back. One is just even about what you're passionate about. Even if you think it's crazy, still do it. Don't let other people convince you not to do what you want to do. Don't let shyness, for example, I loved to danced all my growing up, but I never auditioned for the dance team in high school. Like, I was so shy for that. And I'm looking back like, what was I doing? Why not? Like, even if I sucked, I'm not going to see them in 4 years. It doesn't matter. But like, just having all the things that you're passionate about. Don't let other people dissuade you, especially if you're passionate about learning about something that has nothing to do with STEM. Still do that. So just have really broad and wide interests. Make sure you're always learning. So that don't be difficult. Don't be difficult. Don't be hard on yourself. Things happen, mistakes happen. The quicker that you can acknowledge the mistake, figure out how to make sure it doesn't happen again, and then move on and not just sit and ruminate in it, that just will help you so much in the long run. A lot of it we've talked about previously is like just being really, really humble. And I was able to learn this at an early age from a really good program at my undergrad, but like just knowing the power of community and not feeling like, oh, I'm supposed to be smart and I'm supposed to know everything myself. No, you're not supposed to know everything yourself. Otherwise, you would not be in that classroom. So you need other people to move forward. So, and if someone doesn't want to work with you or move forward with you, there is someone who will. And then going to office hours as well, really getting to know your professors, getting to know your teachers, because you're going to be applying for jobs or applying for other things. And they are the people who will have to write letters to talk about your work and your skills. And if you've only taken their class and never really spoken to them, they don't know who you are. So just making sure your professors know who you are. They have office hours where you can just show up and ask them anything. No one takes advantage of office hours. So, any student that comes to office hours, I'm always, we'll chat about the work and I'll ask like, oh, how's the class going? And, there's oftentimes like, let's say there's a student who has a lot of trouble in the beginning, but then they figure it out. And let's say we get to the end of the semester and they're on the line between like an A and a B, but I can remember, wait, this person came, we talked about it, they figured it out, they're good for it. They have an A, versus someone who, the math is the math at the end of the day because I don't know anything about them. So just making sure people know who you are, they know what you're interested in, that you're going full force into everything you're interested in. And as I mentioned, a lot of the work that you're going to do does not exist yet. So academia, fields in general, are kind of moving away from being these silos where you just learn mechanical engineering or you just learn computer science or you just learn chemical. It's about the mixing of fields. So the more that you know about outside areas, the more marketable you are, and you're actually keeping up with the trends because I'm a computer scientist, but I do a lot with art. I do a lot with sound. I do a lot with hearing. Like I know a lot about audio engineering now. So there's so many things outside of computer science that I do. So just being open to learning in general, I would say.
Thanks for that. That was amazing.
No problem.
Thank you, Dr. McMullen, for joining us today. Lieutenant General Crawford has words.
Yeah, Moria, thank you. And again, thanks so much, Kyla, for just an inspiring message. In putting things into context, a couple of things come to mind. I'd say our future competitive advantage as a nation is going to clearly be heavily influenced by our willingness to invest in our next greatest generation of leaders. There are going to be many challenges in life, but for everyone who's listening, the great equalizer is always awareness that leads to opportunity. And that's what I think that you get with this forum, the second Saturday of every month. So what you heard here today was a story about a journey. And there were really 5 things that I took away from this. In terms of the biggest challenge, normally it's us. All right. When you're faced with challenge, a lot of times we just have to figure out how to get out of our own way and be confident that you belong there. All right. The second point that Dr. McMullen made that stuck with me is she talked about being humble. Don't allow yourself to be in a situation where you're afraid to ask for help. What I took away from that point was asking for help is not a weakness. She talked about mentorship, and she showed a picture of one, and she talked about the other. One, the importance of mentorship was highlighted, but 2, if you notice, one of her mentors didn't look like her. So what I would share with the group and those who are listening is, listen, don't be afraid to accept mentorship from people who don't look like you, is a takeaway there. And then she talked about skills. She talked about leadership. She talked about time management, which I equate to discipline. And she talked about having a growth mindset. And what I would say is today, some of those are looked at as kind of quote unquote soft skills. But what I would argue, given the challenges that we face and the complexity of the world, today's soft skills are really going to be tomorrow's hard skills when you talk about the things that were mentioned by Dr. McMullen. And so last but not least, she talked about being on a team. Everyone, regardless of what level you are, at some point you have to be willing to be a part of a team and be willing to be part of something bigger than self. And so with that, I say again, I'm inspired, and hopefully everyone who was in earshot and eyeshot that could see this is inspired. So with that, I'd like to pass it back over to you, Savannah. Thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you so much, General Crawford, for that amazing message. And I just want to thank everyone who joined us today for Career Day with Dr. Kyla McMullen. Thank you so much for that amazing presentation. It really inspired me, and I know it inspired everyone out there who's looking to go into STEM. We hope that everyone was inspired and will walk away with more knowledge, not only about the career that Dr. McMullen was in, but also about how to manage that career effectively, working in a team, those hard skills, those soft skills. We just learned so much. Remember to visit STEM City USA in the next few weeks to learn more about the STEM City USA Hackathon, Building the Future Today Challenge. If you want to win the challenge, we will invite you. If you win the challenge, we will invite you as a guest ambassador to participate in the November 2022 BEYA Stars and Stripes STEM Career Day. You will get to showcase your metaverse city to our viewers. We'd also like to give a very special thanks to our Career Day sponsor, Lockheed Martin. They're known for their groundbreaking work in aerospace, arms, defense, information secretary, and technology around the world. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay tuned to receive even more great information and presentations like these ones today. Thank you so much, and I'll see y'all next time.
Calling all future STEM pioneers, leaders, and career champions. Join us on every second Saturday of the month for the BEYA Career Day. BEYA STEM Career Day is all about creating opportunities for students to venture into the world of STEM through the eyes of professionals. You'll meet mentors and presenters that will give you a sneak peek into the many options available to you in the field of STEM. Hosted by teen ambassadors, you'll find yourself among inspiring peers just like yourself that are aiming high for their future. To take part in the BEYA STEM Career Day on Zoom, visit fullstemahead.us and register for the next session. Again, that's fullstemahead.us. BEYA, becoming everything you are.